Syria's war is a mess. After 10 years, the conflict is divided between four sides, each with foreign backers, and those foreign backers don't agree with each other on who they are fighting for or who they are fighting against. And Syria's use of chemical weapons had provoked President Donald Trump to directly attack Bashar al Assad. This was a major turn in the story, as up till now, the United States had only concentrated on attacking ISIS. To understand the story, it helps to go back to the beginning to see how it all unfolds. The first shots were fired by Assad on peaceful Arab Spring demonstrators in the year of 2011. By July, the protesters started fighting back. Some soldiers even defected from the Syrian army to join the protesters. They called themselves the Free Syrian Army. This was when the uprising became a civil war. Extremists and jihadists from around the world come to Syria to join the rebels. Now, Assad actually encourages this by releasing jihadists and extremists from prisons to tinge a rebellion with extremism, which makes it harder for foreign backers to support them. In January 2012, Al Qaeda formed a new branch in Syria, Jabhat al Nusra. And also in 2012, Syrian Kurdish groups who had long sought autonomy take up arms and informally secede from Assad's rule in northern Syria. Proxy war is defined as a war instigated by a major power which does not itself become involved. This is what exactly happened in Syria in 2012. Iran, Assad's most important ally, intervenes on his behalf. By the end of 2012, Iran is sending daily cargo flights and has hundreds of officers on ground. At the same time, key US oil-rich Arab states on the Persian Gulf started sending money and aid to the rebels, many to counter Iran's influence. And why do Saudi Arabia and Iran always support the opposite groups? Simple, because of the social, political, and religious struggle. And it is also said so that there is a cold war going on between them, but that is a topic for another video. Now back to Syria. Iran steps up its influence in turn in mid 2012 when Hezbollah, a Lebanese-backed militia backed by Iran, invades to fight along Assad. In turn, the Gulf states respond, Saudi Arabia really stepping up this time to send more money and weapons to the rebels, this time through Jordan, who also opposes Assad. By 2013, the Middle East was divided mainly between Sunni powers generally supporting the rebels and Shias generally supporting Assad. The Obama administration in the White House, horrified by the atrocities and rising death toll caused by Assad, signs a secret order authorizing the CIA to train and equip Syrian rebels. But it was never carried out. At the same time, the US quietly urges Arab Gulf states to stop funding extremists, but their requests basically go ignored. In August, the Assad regime used chemical weapons against protesters once again, provoking condemnation from around the world. The US ends up backing down, but the whole thing establishes Syria as a great power dispute, with Russia backing Assad and US opposing him. Just a few weeks later, the first American CIA training in arms reached the Syrian rebels. The US is now a participant in the war. In February 2014, an Al-Qaeda affiliate, mostly in Iraq, broke away from the group due to internal disagreements. This group called itself the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, and it becomes an enemy to Al-Qaeda. In September, 1 year after the US almost bombed Assad, it began bombing ISIS. That summer in July, the Pentagon launched its own program to train Syrian rebels, but will only train those who will fight ISIS, not Assad. The program fizzles, showing that America now opposes ISIS more than Assad, but it also shows that there are no like-minded Syrian proxy forces on the ground in Syria. In August 2015, Turkey started bombing Kurdish groups in Iraq and in Syria, even as these Kurdish groups are fighting ISIS. But Turkey doesn't bomb ISIS. Turkey wants to create a safe zone in Kurdish-controlled area even as the United States supports the Kurds. This gets to one of the major problems on this conflict. The US sees ISIS as its main enemy, but US's allies like Turkey and a lot of other Middle Eastern states have other priorities. And this makes for a lot of confusing and unclear alliances. The next month, in September 2015, Russia intervened on behalf of Assad, sending a few dozen military aircraft to a long-held Russian military base in Syria. Russia says that it's there to bomb ISIS, but only ends up fighting anti-Assad rebels, including some backed by the US. The next year, Donald Trump won the White House, vowing to stay out of Syria, signaling that Assad should be able to stay in power. And by the end of 2016, Assad, with the help of Russia and Iranian-sponsored militias, retake the city of Aleppo, knocking the rebels of the last remaining urban stronghold. Then in spring 2017, Assad once again used chemical weapons against his people, killing 85, including 20 children. Back in the US, Trump says that his attitude towards Syria and Assad has, quote, changed very much. He vows to respond, and within days, the White House is launching dozens of Tomahawk missiles that strike an airbase in Syria. This is the first time the United States had directly attacked the Assad regime, and this adds to yet another confusing crisscrossing alliance in an already multi-dimensional civil war. And even after Joe Biden had become the president, he still continues to follow Trump's policy, and hundreds of US troops are to remain in the country for the foreseeable future. But as it stands now, Syria is in ruins. Even as Assad recaptures land, the rebellion perseveres. This can be seen in the oldest city of Damascus, which has seen brutal fighting. And with outside countries fueling each of the groups, it's clear to say that there is still no end in sight, and it's hard to see a better future for Syria.